I'm here in the Model Railway Club in the basement, I think, and I'm with Tim Watson, who is the president of the Model Railway Club. Mm-hmm. And Tim, we're standing in front of Copenhagen Fields, the magnificent 2mm fine scale layout. Can you give us a little bit of a history? Tell us what inspired you and how long has it been going would be a good starting point, because I think that's going to surprise a few people.
Well, the layout actually started planning in 1983, right. And that was on the back of an exhibition at the Museum of London, and the fact that we wanted to build a city scene. And so the actual plot that we decided on was Belle Isle and this area of North London. Because when you look at it, you couldn't invent something as complicated as this, and also to present a city scene with the railway in the city scene itself.
So you didn't actually have to go too far, but it is a very London view, isn't it? If you travel around London, you get these southern views with an awful lot of railway in them. So you started back in the 80s,
yes,
on the back of a show, probably on the back of an envelope as well. But
yes, it was actually on the back of a spaghetti house napkin that the original plan was drawn. Unfortunately lost to time, that napkin, but the thing that was drawn up was this model, or the drawings of this model, and that actually is the thing that sold it to so many people for so long. And this actually, when you look at it, isn't actually far off what the layout has ended up as looking like.
Now that model, I'm guessing, was drawn by hand, created by hand as well.
Yes.
Nowadays it will be CAD.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the thing is that when we started, online access didn't exist. Computers were only very new in many ways. So a lot of it was done by analog, as it were, and the actual construction, of course, was done with, just making the drawings on die-line prints and so on. When we started, we actually had very detailed drawings for the construction of the layout. As we've moved on, we sort of just make it up as we go along, really. So it's not so difficult.
Was it a difficult sell to the club? Because I mean, this is a very long-term project. And it must have been a bit of a surprise to people that that how long it was going to take.
Well, we didn't know that back in 1983. So I mean, the previous layout we'd had was Chiltern Green and Luton Hoo, and that had actually had a very short life, in truth. Mm. This we thought would be done rather quicker, not quicker, but quicker than it's turned out. Mm. But the layout has just grown over the years in the complexity of it, and in some ways it's only now beginning to show the full potential of this plan that we had back in 1983. I was going to say, are
we actually at that dream that you had back in the 80s now? Is it the layout that you always dreamt of?
Yes, it is. It's you look at it, it looks complete. But as for all model railways, of course, it's not complete. It's got a long way to go yet.
Well, I believe there was a signal box installed only a few days ago. So.
Yeah, this box here came in this week. It didn't fit, so I had to rebuild the civil engineering behind it to make it fit. So, it's always a sort of... things aren't as planned as they might be, but we get there.
Okay, now I mentioned it's 2mm fine scale, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Why 2mm fine scale? I mean, I appreciate why not O gauge if you're trying to do something like this, but you could have gone N gauge, and surely that would have been easier and faster.
It might have been, but we were moving to fine scale standards at that time, and also, honestly, you couldn't make the track as well in N scale as you can in fine scale, and certainly not at that time. And what we wanted to do was to push the envelope, push for standards, and make a layout which would really show what 2mm fine scale could do on a very big scale.
It certainly is a big scale. Roughly how big is it?
I think it's about 22 feet long.
22 feet long, and it looks like about 6 feet wide at its deepest.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not in a very big room. This must have presented a good few challenges, simply working in this space.
The problem is that the club is never big enough, of course. So when we're in here, it's like moving one of those letters around a puzzle to make space to work on layouts and things. But we get by. Of course, a lot of it is built away from the club because people work on projects, and it then comes into the club to be presented and worked into the model, usually prior to an exhibition or some deadline or other.
You're like everybody, it's a deadline thing. It's like, oh, there's a show coming up, we better get a move on.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it's taking this... Now, we're still talking 80s design, but obviously construction must have started a bit later than that. So
the first timber was cut in 1984, and we set out to make the boards incredibly rigid. So they're a plywood box beam construction, very, very rigidly held together. The track work is all PCB track with chair plates and bullhead rail, which was a first at that stage for a big 2mm layout. And so we set the standards, and we've used technology a lot over the years. So resin cast buildings, a lot of etchings here and there for models, of course, but those are available anyway commercially. But a lot of stuff was shot down to 2mm for us. And more recently, we moved on to laser cutting, silhouette cutter, and of course 3D printing is now the big new kid on the block. And that is really revolutionising what you can do.
But the other revolutionary thing is the approach you've taken to it. On the front, the buildings are very, very detailed,
yes.
Really stand up scrutiny. At the back, less so.
Mm-hmm.
They're much more impressionistic. I take it, is that deliberate? Or?
Entirely deliberate. Partly because we haven't got the time to do the detailing, but the main reason is that your eye thinks it sees things in the distance, and what you've got to do is to try and fool it that it's actually seeing something which may not be there, but your imagination thinks it is.
And so it fills it in.
Yeah.
And of course, the main focus is the trains.
Yes.
Where's the stock come from? Is it one member diligently working away, or is it a group of people?
No. The stock comes from a number of members. The locos will be individually owned. I mean, I've made a few locos, obviously. The stock is with the layout, or it may be privately owned as well. But it's sort of contributed to the greater mass of the whole project.
Roughly how much stock is there for a layout of this size?
An awful lot. I don't know. I mean, all the trains run at full scale length. So, do the maths as 6 mainline trains, 10 coaches, 11 coaches, whatever they are.
And that's just the coaches, plus plus the wagons, plus you've got to have enough locos. And not just enough locos, you've got to have enough locos to, if there's a failure, to show.
Yeah, well, the model is, as they say, looks like a swan, serene and elegant. On the top, but paddling like crazy underneath. So maintaining the engines and keeping them running during an exhibition is a bit of a challenge sometimes.
And I think the other thing I'm fascinated by is that you don't have to take the entire layout out, because of course one of the yards can be operated completely separately.
Yes, this little yard here, we call it Mrs. Wilberforce's yard because of the tie-in with the Lady Killers, is exhibitable on its own. And in fact, the new bit of the layout we've been working on will also actually become a separate exhibitable piece as well.
This is presumably because you still want to go to shows, you still want to attract members,
yes.
But you don't need to be lugging this out every weekend.
Unfortunately, this is always the first layout in the show and the last one out. And it's nice to be the last in and the first out with a small little section. So it's nice to take those small bits out into exhibitions.
Good final question, Tim. Really, is it finished? How long is it going to be before it's finished?
A long time. It looks sort of finished, but when you know what's not there, you realise there's an awful lot to go in with signals, more tracks through the goods yard operational, more details perhaps in the middle distance. It's going to go for quite a few years yet before it's complete.
So we can look forward to seeing you at shows in the future once shows restart.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yes.
We can look forward to coming back and paying another visit and seeing as progress happens.
Indeed. Yes, look forward to it.
Thanks very much, Tim.